Hi, fifth graders. Today we are going to continue working on solving equations with variables. What that means is we're going to find the value of the variable in the equation that we see. Last week when we did this, we did it with just one-step problems. Today we're going to move on to two-step problems. So just like last week, we're going to think of our equation as a balance. The two sides have to be equal. They have to have the same value. So when we're solving for a variable, what we're really trying to figure out is what does x have to be in order to make this equation work, in order to make this side equal 8 the way this side does. What you're going to notice here is that we have just one number on the left side of our equation this time and the operations on the right. And I did this on purpose because I want you guys to see that equations don't mean work on one side, answer on the other. They just mean the two sides have to have the same value. So sometimes you might have to work out on the right side of the equation to figure out the variable. You do the exact same thing that we did last week. You're just trying to isolate the variable or get the variable all by itself so you can figure out what does x have to equal. So when I look at this equation, I'm thinking, okay, I need to figure out what this x has to be to make this side of my equation the same value as 8. In order to do that, I want to get x by itself. So I want to kind of get rid of this 2 and these 3 groups of x. I'm going to save the multiplication part for the end every time. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this 2. Last week we did the inverse operations. So if it had said plus 2, we subtracted 2 from both sides. This time you're going to see there's nothing in front of this 2. Well, if we look at a number line down here and we think about where should that 2 go, it goes right over the positive number 2. So you're going to notice on our number line down there we have negative and positive numbers. Positive numbers are the same as adding numbers, just like the positive sign is the plus sign. So I put that 2 down here on the number 2, and if I want to get the x by itself, what we're really doing is getting that 2 to the 0. That means I want to kind of move it over 1, 2 places to the 0. In order to do that, I would be jumping left, backwards, which means I would be subtracting 2. I'm making 2 jumps to get that to 0. So I'm subtracting to get that 2 back to 0. We learned last week that anything we do on one side of the equation, we must do on the other. So what we're going to do here is we're going to subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. When we do that, we're going to see that we have 8 minus 2 is 6. 2 minus 2 is 0. So now we have 6 equals 0 plus 3x. But we don't need that 0 here anymore. So instead, I'm just going to write it like this. 6 equals 3x. And now, again, I don't want to know what 3 groups of x are. I just want to know what's 1x. So we're going to do the inverse operation. We are going to do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Remember that this line right here means divide. When we divide by 3, what we're doing here is we're saying any number divided by itself is just 1. And then we're left with our 1x. So 3x divided by 3 is going to give us just x. And then 6 divided by 3 gives us 2. So we solved this equation and we found out that in order for 8 to equal 2 plus 3x, x would have to be worth 2. I can check that by looking up here and saying, okay, if I were to work out, evaluate this side of the equation, that means I would be doing 3 times 2, which is 6, plus another 2, which is 8. So I know that works. So here's the same problem, but how you're going to do it. You're going to use the toolbox again to show your work right here in the problem. So you can see I put directions here. When there's no operation before a number, it means it's positive, and the inverse of positive is negative. So to get this x alone, to get rid of that 2, to get it to 0, we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So we put our minus 2 right there. And we also do it on the other side of the equation, minus 2. So just like I just showed you, 8 minus 2 is 6. And when we do 2 minus 2, we're going to be at 0. So we can just have our 3x equals 6 now. And then we have to think to ourselves, okay, but we want to know what 1x is. The inverse of multiplication is division. So to get that x by itself, we are going to divide both sides by 3. We're going to divide both sides by 3. This is how you're going to show your division bar. Just drag it over like this. We're dividing both sides by 3 because I want to know what 1x is worth, and any number divided by itself is 1. And our 6 divided by 3 is 2. So x equals 2.